Every time the forces of the Astra Militarum march into battle, the enemy is quickly made aware by the foreshadowing of thunderous artillery bombardments. The artillery officers of the Astra Militarum often say that infantry wins firefights, tanks win battles, but the artillery wins the war. Artillery companies specialise in laying down barrages of ordnance fire from long range, pummeling the enemy to dust. The shells from these ordnance batteries are often the first thing to inflict damage upon the enemy prior to a general advance. Once the dust has settled, rank upon rank of guardsmen sweep forwards to capitalise on the weakened enemy forces, which are still recovering from the destruction left by the artillery salvos. The Astra Militarum fares well in siege warfare thanks to its dedicated artillery regiments. They can bring down heavily armoured fortifications and bunker complexes with the sheer magnitude of firepower they can unleash. Artillery tanks of the Astra Militarum all use the same versatile and rugged chassis of the Chimera, the armoured transport vehicle. This base is ideal to house a wide variety of armaments and can be produced on a large scale. A heavy bolter or heavy flamer is mounted in its hull to provide additional fire support and to repel infantry assaults. The chassis is relatively nimble, allowing artillery companies to quickly redeploy to advantageous positions, and it has sufficient armour to endure a fair degree of punishment. Perhaps the most iconic and well known of all the Astra Militarum's artillery tanks is the Basilisk, which mounts the fearsome Earthshaker cannon. The powerful shells fired by this enormous cannon are designed to cause catastrophic damage at the impact zone, and can blast gaping holes in infantry formations, as well as punch through the hulls of enemy armoured vehicles. The unmistakable shockwave produced from the Earthshaker cannon shells pulverises anyone unlucky enough to be caught in the vicinity, while the targets at the epicentre of the detonation are instantly destroyed. The howling shriek of the incoming ordnance payload of a Basilisk is rightly feared by the enemies of the Imperium. Due to their lighter armour and exposed crew platforms, Basilisks are fielded as support vehicles and deployed far back out of line of sight. From there they make use of the incredibly long range of their main armament, where the enemy is powerless to retaliate. The Earthshaker cannon's design allows the angle of the weapon to be adjusted so that it can fire indirectly over the battlefield onto concealed enemy targets. Skilled crews are able to reload the main cannon at a swift pace, maintaining a high rate of fire for such a potent weapon. Artillery commanders have been known to order volleys of basilisks to fire simultaneously, dealing a highly destructive hammer blow which can shatter the morale of even the bravest warriors. The Emperor's Wrath Artillery Company is one of the wider known and feared artillery formations of the Astra Militarum. It often fields 3 ordnance batteries, with each battery containing up to 3 Basilisk tanks. Wherever this fabled artillery company is deployed, the battlefield is quickly turned into a crater-marked smoking ruin. The crew have been hand-picked by the company commander and have shown great judgment at precisely angling the main cannon of the Basilisk to fire at locations the enemy will occupy as soon as the bombardment lands. These barrages of heavy Earthshaker shells can rain down for hours, days, or even weeks at a time, providing the ammunition supplies last. Few defences can withstand the sheer destructive force they unleash. The Wyvern Tank is another ordnance-style vehicle capable of firing indirectly at its targets from a distance. It fills the role of a suppression tank and is armed with a quadruple array of Storm Shard mortars. The Storm Shard mortars have a shorter range and lack the sheer impact power of the Basilisk's Earthshaker cannon, but their air-bursting shells are able to carpet a much larger area in quick succession. This makes the Wyvern very proficient at clearing out infantry hiding in areas of dense terrain, such as urban environments. A modified version of the Hydra auto-targeting system is fitted to the Wyvern, which it uses to perform proximity scans, seeking out clusters of enemy infantry. Once the optimal targets have been identified, the Storm Shard mortar shells emit a distinctive howling scream as they fly through the air, descending upon their victims. This is followed by crackling booms as the shells explode, scattering a flurry of sharpened projectiles over a wide area. Those around the impact zone who survive the initial explosions are shredded apart by the flying projectiles, making it almost impossible for enemy troops to escape the Wyvern's wrath. Although entire batteries of Wyvern tanks can be fielded to bombard an enemy into oblivion, they are more often fielded in smaller numbers, supporting a larger formation. The versatility of the Wyvern allows it to provide invaluable close-range fire support to infantry platoons of guardsmen, repelling waves of enemies that threaten to overrun them, or uprooting enemies that have taken cover in their trenches. The infantry shredding power of the Wyvern's Storm Shard mortars can also be used to cover the vulnerabilities of Leman Russ battle tanks from being flanked and assaulted by ground forces. The Hydra tank mounts an impressive long-barreled quad autocannon. This anti-air weapon is ideal for picking nimble Xenos flyers or demonic, winged monstrosities out of the sky. The machine spirit of the Hydra is able to single out and lock onto its targets so that the weapon turret can adjust its tilt angle and rotate to direct its fire at its prey. Its ammunition autoloaders engage as the quad autocannon fills the air with flashing traces of firepower. Few airborne enemies can survive for long once they have been locked into the Hydra's sights. Like all artillery tanks of the Astra Militarum, the Hydra is a support vehicle rather than a main battle tank, and is deployed in the back lines where it can be better protected. Despite its main armament being designed for anti-air combat, it can be angled down to suppress ground enemies with hails of autocannon fire. To do this, the auto-targeting system has to be disengaged, causing a loss of accuracy when firing at unfavourable ground targets. But should a situation arise where this would become necessary, the outlook of the battle would be very bleak indeed. Company commanders must therefore ensure that their Hydra batteries are sufficiently guarded from direct attacks so that they may concentrate their efforts on clearing the skies. Even a single Hydra can lay down an impressive amount of firepower, but when multiple tanks are fielded in support batteries, they can bring down monstrous flying creatures under the weight of puncturing fire, and reduce even heavily armoured attack craft to scrap metal as their fuel tanks and ammunition stores are ruptured and detonate. Hydra tanks have gained a reputation among the Astra Militarum for being a sign of good fortune, leading to them being given nicknames such as Steel Saviours, as the tanks help to stave off the roaring approach of enemy aircraft or the looming shadows of monstrous wings. Such enemy approaches instill absolute fear into regiments without such anti-air cover. As the Astra Militarum forces push forwards into battle, their route to victory is often covered by the watchful guns of the Hydras, and they can make all the difference in the resulting outcome. The Manticore is one of the older and rarer variants of artillery tanks, dating back to the earliest days of the Imperium. It's equipped with 4 mighty Storm Eagle rockets which can cause a tremendous level of destruction and allow the Manticore to bombard enemies from an extreme range. Each Storm Eagle rocket uses a long-burn, single-stage booster, directed by a sophisticated guidance system to deliver its payload swiftly and accurately. The warhead contains a multitude of highly explosive bomblets, each blessed with the Canticles of Wrath, that are scattered across a wide area as the rocket breaks up upon reaching its target. The impact of these bomblets creates a series of concussive blasts that pulverize enemy armor by the force of multiple detonations. Infantry caught in the thunderous carpet of explosions stand little chance of surviving the Manticore's fury. The sightings of fiery vapor trails left in the wake of a Storm Eagle rocket as it soars across the battlefield, and the deafening roar of its oncoming approach strikes terror into the hearts of its foes as they scramble for cover, desperately attempting to escape its wrath. The versatility of the Manticore has somewhat diminished over time, as the technology needed to create the variety of devastating warhead options it once possessed has been lost. Though some rare variants may still exist, the Storm Eagle rocket is now the only remaining armament the Manticore rolls into battle with. This is not a disadvantage, however, as these rockets were by far the most powerful compared to their obsolete variants. Though its potency is undeniable in battle, the ancient machine spirit of the Manticore can sometimes be temperamental. Great care must be taken when rearming depleted rockets, a process that can take tech priests and specialist servitors hours. As such, it is not practical to rearm the Manticore in the field, rendering the tank's ammunition reserve finite, a limiting factor that must be considered before deployment. Despite these limitations, many commanders consider the rewards of such a destructive artillery piece more than worth it. Even a single, well-placed Manticore can provide equal value to an entire battery of lesser ordnance, and can be the decisive factor in pivotal moments of war. The mere presence of a Manticore inspires terror among the enemies of the Imperium, until the moment when its might is unleashed to deliver the final killing blow. A Deathstrike tank takes the destructive power of a Manticore and increases it tenfold. It's only deployed in desperate measures when a clear purpose for its use is fully defined and absolutely necessary, one reason for their limited use. The range and destructive capability of the Deathstrike is unparalleled. It's armed with a colossal missile that can reach its targets in locations hundreds of miles away, bringing the Emperor's wrath to an approaching army, or directly into the heart of an enemy-held territory. A weapon of this magnitude can't simply be fired at will. An amount of preparation must take place before the missile can be fired, such as various trajectory calculations, weather condition checks, and raising the launch arm to the correct angle prior to launch. A Deathstrike preparing to fire quickly draws the attention of enemy forces and becomes a priority target. It therefore requires adequate protection while preparations are being made so as not to present the foe with a valuable and relatively easy target. They are always deployed far behind Imperial lines, lurking out of sight, and remaining undetected as they prepare their deadly strike. While the chassis of the Deathstrike is shared across many patterns of artillery tanks, the missile requires a large resource investment to produce, and good justification must be provided when requested by a company commander. Due to their complex construction process, the battles for which they are requested can often be concluded by the time the weapon actually becomes available, another reason they tend to see limited use. Even with such restrictions, Deathstrikes have seen a good amount of use against almost every enemy of the Imperium, for their incredible value and situational versatility are too great to ignore. The Deathstrike missile's warhead can contain a variety of horrifying payloads intended to inflict maximum damage on its desired target. The Godspear warhead is one of the more common types, and can punch through even the void shields of a Titan, bringing the Titanic Walker down in a single hit. Various other warheads have been used to deliver devastation to the enemies of the Imperium. Warheads containing deadly biological pathogens have been directed at the centre of enemy strongholds, forcing them to emerge from the safety of its walls. Warheads that explode with searing plasma can lay waste to large areas of infantry or vehicles alike. However, the most terrifying of all are the dreaded Vortex missiles. These incredibly rare and venerated warheads are able to sunder reality itself. The resulting blast fires out an unholy shockwave of warp energy that obliterates anything caught in its immense fury. Such brutal weaponry is saved for only the darkest of days. Only veteran commanders with a complete understanding of ballistic warfare can fully put to use the true potential and obliterative power of a Deathstrike.